Martin Reardon is the senior vice president at the Soufan Group and a former program manager in the FBI's Counterterrorism division. He joins us now from Doha. Hi, Martin. Thanks for speaking to us. I just want to quickly ask you, Daesh, of course, claims to have organized these attacks. Do you have any doubt that they were in some way at least responsible?
At least from an inspiration standpoint. And I think we know that much simply because you have the cell leader, one of the suicide bombers, who was unmasked with other people who could have been the other bombers that hasn't been released yet, but swearing allegiance to the Islamic State. So therefore, at least from an inspiration standpoint, Islamic State would have some involvement.
Okay. The Sri Lankan government, as you know, has already apologized for a lapse in security in the lead up to these attacks. How confident are you now that those responsible will actually be brought to account and that they can maybe break the back of dangerous extremists that are in the country?
Well, that's yet to be determined, but I think this was obviously a punch in the face for the Sri Lankan government. Starting from the top, you had a dysfunctional relationship between the president and the prime minister. I would say that's still dysfunctional. But also keeping in mind, 11 days beforehand, Sri Lankan government security service received very specific information to include the name of the cell leader and other cell members, and the fact that they were going to target Catholic churches. So this was not something that should have been unexpected.
In hindsight, it almost seems unforgivable, does it not?
It does. It does. And, you know, they had the information. There were no proactive steps taken to further investigate who these individuals were. And there was no increase in the security posture. They had, targets, not specific targets, but it was going to be Catholic churches in Sri Lanka. But there was no security posture raised there.
Let me ask you a broader question then. Going back, we'd heard that Daesh had been defeated in its strongholds in Iraq and in Syria, and that Al-Qaeda was kind of gone and forgotten. But what really are their numbers now? How do you assess their influence?
Well, first of all, as far as the defeat, as far as not controlling any territory for the time being, that is correct. But the ideology is still there, and there are still, at a minimum, several thousand Islamic State fighters in Iraq and Syria. They're just, for the most part, they have gone underground. But remember, their predecessor, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, did this same thing in 2008. And then they resurfaced in 2011 when the timing was right. So I don't think any counterterrorism expert would doubt that the Islamic State is still there. They are still a potent threat, and they will resurface again someplace in Iraq and Syria or in some other country where there's a lack of governance.
Okay, Martin, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us from Doha.